And look, I'm Jewish, and I come from a Jewish family, but being critical of Israel does not mean you're anti-Semitic. And I'm not going to allow that to confine me, especially when it comes to calling out oppressive policies.
Hamas committed atrocities that recall the worst ravages of ISIS. We will not stand by and do nothing again.
Hey everyone, this is David, producer for The Benjamin Dixon Show, and like it or not, so President Biden is in Israel, and he has addressed the Israeli people today. He's gone there to show his unflinching support, or America's unflinching support of Israel in its war against Hamas, which I would question if it's really just a war against the Palestinian people, considering the humanitarian crisis and the carpet bombing and the civilian death toll, the way that Israeli leaders have referred to the Palestinian people, and even having seen an Israeli soldier tell CNN that the war is against the Palestinian civilians. But I digress. In his speech, Biden made a comparison between Hamas and ISIS, which seems to be the agreed upon talking point for everyone supporting Israel, because Israel's been posting propaganda images and graphics saying that Hamas is Israel or Hamas equals Israel. Here's what President Biden had to say.
I know the recent terrorist assault on the people of this nation has left a deep, deep wound. More than 1,300 innocent Israelis killed, including at least 31 American citizens by the terrorist group Hamas. Hundreds of young people at a music festival. The festival was for peace. Scores of innocents, from infants to elderly grandparents, Israelis and Americans, taken hostage. Children slaughtered, babies slaughtered, entire families massacred. Hamas committed atrocities that recall the worst ravages of ISIS, unleashing pure, unadulterated evil upon the world. October 7th, which was a sacred Jewish holiday, became the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. It has brought to the surface painful memories and scars left by millennia of anti-Semitism and the genocide of the Jewish people. The world watched then, it knew, and the world did nothing. We will not stand by and do nothing again.
So I do understand that Hamas's tactics, especially during this attack, were gruesome and heinous. There's no question. It was indefensible. Killing innocent people, especially intentionally, there's no excuse for it. But this framing and comparison, they're not the same. They have different philosophies, and they have different goals. There are differences between these two. And conflating the two and making it seem like they're one and the same doesn't help understand the actual situation of who Hamas is, why they exist, and the challenges in actually resolving this 75-year-old conflict. This was not a 9/11. This was an extremist group attacking an oppressor. But President Biden went on.
75 years ago, just 11 minutes after its founding, President Harry S. Truman and the United States of America became the first nation to recognize Israel. We've stood by your side ever since. We're going to stand by your side now. My administration was in close touch with your leadership from the first moments of this attack. We're going to make sure we have what you need to protect your people, to defend your nation. For decades, we've ensured Israel's qualitative military edge. And later this week, I'm going to ask the United States Congress for an unprecedented support package for Israel's defense. We're going to keep Iron Dome fully supplied so it can continue standing sentinel over Israeli skies, saving Israeli lives. We've moved U.S. military assets to the region, including positioning the USS Ford Carrier Strike Group in the Eastern Mediterranean to defer further aggression against Israel and to prevent this conflict from spreading. The world will know that Israel is stronger than ever. And my message to any state or any other hostile actor thinking about attacking Israel remains the same as it was a week ago. Don't.
He's looking for an unprecedented package of aid to keep their weaponry fully supplied to protect Israeli lives. What about Palestinian lives, Joe? Shouldn't it be all of the civilian lives? He's said barely anything of the civilians in Gaza. It's one thing for Israel to retaliate against Hamas. It's another thing for them to be destroying an entire region where the civilians don't have anywhere to hide, no sanctuary, There's no place for them to go without worrying that they could be struck. And look, I'm Jewish, and I come from a Jewish family. My great-grandparents came here in the early 1900s. But being critical of Israel does not mean you're anti-Semitic. And I'm not going to allow that to confine me, especially when it comes to calling out oppressive policies and policies that other an entire population, least of all an indigenous population. When the United Nations voted to form and acknowledge the State of Israel, they did so without regard for the Arab countries surrounding the region, and Israel was essentially founded, which created all of the tensions, and 75 years later, we're still seeing the tensions and divisions because of it. Because you took refugees from other countries, they had their lives torn apart because of World War II, they survived the Nazis, they definitely needed refuge. But you inserted people onto land that was already lived upon. Right after the Palestinian people that lived there had just gotten the British out of there. So the Palestinian people went from being occupied by the British to being occupied by the State of Israel. But again, I digress.
You can't look at what has happened here to your mothers, your fathers, your grandparents, sons, daughters, children, even babies, and not scream out for justice. Justice must be done. But I caution this: while you feel that rage, don't be consumed by it. After 9/11, we were enraged in the United States. While we sought justice and got justice, we also made mistakes. I'm the first U.S. president to visit Israel in time of war. I've made wartime decisions. I know the choices are never clear or easy for the leadership. There's always cost, but it requires being deliberate. It requires asking very hard questions. It requires clarity about the objectives and an honest assessment about whether the path you're on will achieve those objectives. The vast majority of Palestinians are not Hamas. Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Hamas uses innocent families in Gaza as human shields, putting their command centers, their weapons, their communications tunnels in residential areas. Palestinian people are suffering greatly as well. We mourn the loss of innocent Palestinian lives like the entire world.
We're mourning the loss of Palestinian lives, but we're not demanding Israel stop carpet bombing and stop attacking civilians. We've seen Israel let in medical teams only for them to get struck by Israeli bombs. We've seen Israel order the people of Gaza to evacuate from the north so that they can target Hamas. But as soon as Palestinians started to move to the south of Gaza, there were attacks again that were reportedly from Israel. Now, to be sure, Hamas has been warning Palestinians not to leave their homes. They've been warning Palestinians that they should stay in place, and that's more or less to protect Hamas so that they can hide from within. There's no doubt about that. But Israel has not been resisting taking out civilians. It's great that Biden said that Hamas is not Palestine, that Hamas does not represent Palestine, and that not all Palestinians are Hamas. Wonderful. How about publicly pressuring Israel not to attack them? Instead, we're giving them a blank check, fully supporting them with weaponry that is being used against Palestinian civilians. Now, Biden did end his speech by calling for peace and a two-state solution. And, I guess we shouldn't have expected anything different, but calling for peace while also supporting Israel targeting civilians just doesn't mesh. Those two positions completely contradict each other. Anyway, we're going to continue to stay current on what's going on, and we'll be back with more. Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.